always come back to thinking about this, the Oscar Wilde quote, you know, we're all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. And it's absolutely the case. Spiritual intelligence is actually quite a simple concept. It's really about bringing awareness more to our day-to-day life about our values, our deepest values, and what is our purpose in life. Not just, well, it's very important to be aware of what your purpose is in the workplace, but also in the longer term. You know, if you're getting closer to the end of your life and you're thinking, what is it I wish to have done? What is it that I would have liked to accomplish? It's, you know, what is it that if I didn't do it, I would have regretted it, right? It's also about living authentically, being in deeper alignment with yourself and being comfortable with who you are as a person. We have four main intelligences. We have the physical intelligence that athletes are very connected to, for instance. We have emotional intelligence, which we now know is very important for the workplace, that people perform better when they're with people who are emotionally intelligent. And that's been coming up in the workplace for the last 20 years. And we have the cognitive intelligence, which has been the IQ, which has been around for a long time. And spiritual intelligence has been really coming in. People have become a lot more aware of the value of purpose in the workplace. And that's been coming in for the last, I'd say, 8 years more prominently. So that's really, really key. Now with leadership, one of the really knock-on effects, if you like, of developing spiritual intelligence is that you develop your intuition and foresight. And it gives you amazingly clear vision. When you know, that is one thing about spiritual intelligence, is that it widens your perspective. So imagine navigating in a map that's really zoomed in, and you come across a block. If that was all your perspective, you're going to really struggle with that blockage. Perhaps you're going to not want to really be moving on with it. You know, it impacts your resilience. But if you could see the bigger picture, if you could see several routes to getting there, it's not really going to phase you very much. So it's amazing for resilience. It's very, very empowering in lots of different ways. But it also helps leaders be much more supportive to their workforce. And that's absolutely key. And we know, I mean, there was a survey done by Boston Consultancy Group, surveying 200,000 people. And what they found was that the number one most important thing for them in the workplace that motivated them is being validated, is being supported, is feeling part of a community and feeling included. Believe it or not, the financial side was number 8 on the list. So it kind of tells you a lot. And you know, very obviously that's once they have a certain level of life. You know, if you're really not, you know, if you're not in a very good place financially, that may be number 1 for you. But once you get to a certain point, it's not the biggest motivator that people think it is. I basically see leadership as having 3 main aspects to it. One is the vision. I don't think that's really negotiable. You really need to have a strong vision, and to develop that, to keep on working on it all the time and setting strategies according to that vision. I don't really see tasks managing, well, if you're talking about senior leadership, they're going to be looking at systems and processes, and from those the tasks will develop. It's not really negotiable. It's not the most fun thing to do, but they have to set the systems and processes in place to get everything really ticking properly and filtering down into senior management and to moving from that. But the third aspect to leadership is about what is now being called servant leadership. It's about knowing how to bring out the best potential of their people. So, you know, I call that 360-degree leadership, that you've got the visionary aspect, you've got the people aspect, the human-centered part, and you've got the systems and processes. I don't think you need to shift one from the other. It's about balancing everything together. I think without having all 3 main aspects to leadership, you're always going to be struggling somewhere. you're either going to be leaving your people behind and you're going to get really upset because no one is performing properly, or you're going to be maybe too soft a leader that's not going to be, maybe is going to have a problem holding your people in place, or you're not going to be having a strong direction. So having the three together creates a really very good balance for everybody. Well, when you see a lot of your people are spending half their day looking for other jobs, that's a surefire sign. There are three main signs, really. I mean, they're kind of regarded. One is absenteeism, when people just don't turn up to work. The other one is presenteeism, when people turn up to work, but they're not really being productive. And the third side of the third aspect is when you have very low retention rate. Now, with absenteeism, if you're seeing a lot of that, that could indicate people feeling isolated at work. That can happen very easily. Managers need to be really aware of this, that to give everybody equal attention. What happens is, and as a coach, I've had people come to me saying, my boss hates me. And the boss may not even be aware of that. That they're passing them over for to put into groups or teams. And when that person starts to feel that way, and they instinctively turn to their colleagues. And their colleagues, rather than supporting them, which is what you would think would happen, actually they're worried about a contagion effect. So they tend to distance. And what happens is that people end up like waking up in the morning, they feel very, they feel it's a very hostile environment they're stepping into it. It gets to that point. They don't turn up to work. That's when you have absenteeism. They spend a large part of the day looking for other jobs. And it's actually a very easy problem to fix. The leaders just need to be aware that it's their responsibility to make sure all their team is engaged and working properly, and if there is an issue with one, to take them aside and talk to them. So that's really with absenteeism, presenteeism, and lack of productivity. Sorry, just to say, isolation in the workplace in the US costs them $54 billion a year. Poor productivity in the UK costs around £51 billion a year. In the US, there was a study by McKinsey done not long ago. It showed around 200, it's hard to quantify exactly, but they reckon it's around $200 billion a year in loss of people who are not turning up to work, who are not being productive, it's a massive loss of not only productivity and input into the workplace, but in terms of human capital, that people are really suffering. Nobody wants to go to work just to slouch around. Very, very few people want that. Most people want to be really excited about their work, and it's up to the managers to really make sure that people are being utilized, that their human resources it's the biggest expenditure for most industries. So it's not hard to do that. It's easy to put in with a little bit of well-being. Again, there was a study last year done by Deloitte. They showed that for every £1 spent in investing in their people's well-being, they got back £4.7, right? And for every pound they invested in changing the organizational culture, they yielded back 6.3% return. So, sorry, 6.3 pounds for every pound spent. So the investment, the return to the investment is massive, and it's very surprising that more and more organizations are not really paying attention to this. It really comes back to this potential again, that we have so much more potential than we can ever really know, And we spend so much of our day, especially now that we've had, with the internet and with emails kind of coming in thick and fast, and with the AI, with the boost, and it's going to get more, when quantum computing comes in, it's going to get more and more. So we spend so much of our day just fielding problems, worrying about all the emails we have to send, thinking about, oh God, I have to deal with this, that person spoke, do they hate me? And, relationships. And, there's so many, it can occupy all our volume. So all we're actually focusing on is our problems and fielding them. And that's incredibly draining. Of course, we have to field our problems. Of course, we have to respond to emails. But let's create more space. Because this is one thing about spiritual intelligence. And I always come back to thinking about this, the Oscar Wilde quote, we're all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. And this is absolutely the case. If all we do is look at the gutter, we're going to really wreck our lives. But we all have to be in the gutter. We all deal with problems on a day-to-day basis. But let's make space to look at the stars and see what our potential is. And we'll be amazed at what we can do, what we can accomplish. And I've been preparing recently. I've been doing a lot of research for a talk I'm giving at a tech exhibition on where quantum physics meets consciousness and how it impacts our evolution. And it's actually really amazing how our science is now bringing us back to everything that the mystics have always said, that our intentions shape our reality, our thoughts, our intentions shape our reality. And quantum physics is really kind of coming in back to that. So if we're always focusing on our problems, what are we going to get? And let's deal with our problems, but focus on what brings us light and hope into our lives and really aim to accomplish that. And I'm a very practical person, so I actually like to give very practical things to do, very simple exercises for that, practical tools to help people feel more confident and to help them live a richer life, and to bring that also. And then when you bring that into an organization, an amazing synergy happens. When you have more and more people who are in that state, a synergy happens. And people are much more excited to coming back into work. And that's when you really start creating ripple effects within the organization and fielding out as well. That's what I really hope people would take from the talks.